Hello and welcome to Thrive in 5. I believe one of the best indicators of our future success in life and quality of life has to do with how we handle controversy, failure, and sometimes even tragedy. And a good place to learn something about that is the upcoming day of national tragedy for the Jewish people, Tisha B'Av, which doesn't just mark our failure to follow Moses into the Promised Land in biblical times, but also the destruction of the first and second temples, the second being destroyed by the Romans in the year 70 of the Common Era. And they didn't just knock down a building, of course, but they exiled us, took away our national sovereignty, and murdered close to 1 million Jews. There's a story about a group of sages who passed by the site of the temple not long after its destruction. And the temple had been razed to the ground. There was like nothing but a plowed field there. But from the spot where the Holy of Holies once stood, a fox emerged. And it brought back the magnitude of the tragedy to the sages, and they began to cry. All of them except Rabbi Akiva, who actually began to laugh. And they turned to him and said, Akiva, how can you laugh at such a time? And he explained to them, he said, the prophet Uriah forecast that the temple would be plowed over like a field, but the prophet Zechariah forecast that Jerusalem would one day be rebuilt and filled with the sounds of people walking its streets. And up until the time when Uriah's prophecy was fulfilled, I wasn't sure if Zechariah's prophecy would be fulfilled, but now that Uriah's prophecy has been fulfilled, I know that Zechariah's prophecy will be fulfilled as well. One could glean from Tisha B'Av the simple lesson that we messed up, God is angry, and He's punishing us and allowing us to experience the consequences of our mistakes. But I don't believe that that's the real message of Tisha B'Av. Yes, we made mistakes, and yes, God has hidden His face as He promised in His Torah, and He's allowing us to experience those consequences. But it's not because He's angry, it's not because He hates us, but it's because He loves us, because He understands that hidden within those very consequences themselves are the seeds to our future redemption. It's easy to look back at the last 2,000 years of Jewish history and see nothing but death and destruction, hatred and persecution and genocide. But we have a choice to see much more than that, because out of that we can also glean the remarkable people, the Jewish people, who have not only survived against all odds, but have made an impact well beyond their numbers. It's easy to see just a lot of persecution and hatred, but it's also possible to take note of the mind-boggling obsession that the nations of the world have with a tiny people who represent less than 1% of the world's population, which indicates that when it comes to us, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. It's possible to see the events like the temple's destruction or the murder of close to 1 million Jews during the Bar Kokhba rebellion and their final destruction of the city of Beitar, or the expulsion of the entire Jewish population from Spain in 1492, or the beginnings of World War I in August of 1918, which led directly to World War II, and the murder of 6 million Jews. But it's also possible to see that all of those events took place on Tisha B'Av, just as our Torah forecast, and to recognize that there are actually much deeper currents to the ups and downs of history than we may be aware of, and that there might just be some higher force pulling strings behind the scenes. Nobody wants to suffer, and we don't wish it upon ourselves or upon anybody else to go through tragedy, and we don't make light of it at all. But when we do face these challenges, we do have a choice. We can see them as they appear on the surface, take them for what they appear to be, or we can recognize that hidden within those tragedies so often are the very, very seeds of our future redemption. So often, it's precisely when we go down that we manage to take hold of a part of ourselves that we never would have discovered had we not gone down there. And we realize that the whole reason we went down was to retrieve that part so that we could rise beyond where we ever had been before. So often, it's the challenges and tragedies of life that help us to recognize not only who we truly are and what we truly want, but actually bring out of us the very, very qualities that are essential for us to fulfill our true potential in life. I hope that you have an easy fast and a meaningful fast, and I hope to see you again real soon.